Hey, Zach. Okay, let's do a overview of everything. First, let's go over the what will be the most important to probably the people that you'll be trying to market to. That'll be the podcast section, phys med, and patient prep. I'll kind of do a bird's eye view of each of these really quickly, and then maybe we can get a little bit more into those ones. So we'll just go down the list actually. Podcasts. These are divided into interview-based and non-interview-based podcasts. And one of the best ways to learn about health is to zoom in as much as you can and understand the nitty-gritty details, and then to not forget to zoom back out and how it plays a role in the bigger picture. And so that's what a lot of these podcast hosts are able to do with the guests that they invite on and the interviews that they do. For example, Rhonda Patrick recently did one with a PhD person that's done a lot of research into sleep, and phenomenal. It's a 3-hour podcast, but man, if you listen to that, you'll probably know more about sleep than most of the MD and DO docs in the world. It's phenomenal. So podcast is one of the best ways to learn. So here are some interview-based ones, and I've tried to list them almost in order of my favorite. So I love these top 4. And each of them have a little bit of a different taste to them. So Rhonda Patrick's really into nutrigenomics. That means the effects of nutrients on the DNA. And then obviously because she has a lot of guests on, it's a lot more than just that. Ari Whitten is more about fatigue and what are the different sources of fatigue and how to overcome them. Great podcast. He's amazing. Chris Kresser, I don't listen too much, honestly, but he's huge in the health world and health space. He's an acupuncturist. Really popular guy. Michael Ruscio has more of a gut emphasis. Billy Mitchell is a graduate from my class, and although his is young and growing, he actually has a pretty decent podcast. Guillermo is more about physical medicine, so working out, that kind of stuff. Neil Barnard's more about veganism, eating a plant-based diet, and Aglash is all about breastfeeding. Ashley James interviews a bunch of different people, and so do these following people. Okay, then you have your non-interview based. These top 2 are probably my favorite in the health world. Gregor's videos on YouTube, also his podcast, they're basically all the same. They're phenomenal. Chris Masterjohn, this is kind of a step up if you really want to get smart. He's got some classes, some videos that go way, way into depth. Otherwise, his other videos are pretty easy for the common person. Jordan Peterson, huge in clinical psychology and kind of a world expert, he's an expert, but he's popular worldwide. He's gained in popularity over the last few years. I really like him. And on and on. And then here's some other good podcasts that aren't listed. So this FABNO means that they're like a naturopathic cancer doc, naturopathic oncologist. So we've got some good ones there. Here's one about where is it? Unruffled. This is awesome. This is about how to be an awesome parent. Really, really good. Whew. Okay, and then some other ones that you can kind of explore or look at. Mind Body Podcast, so these get into happiness, how to be a person that obtains happiness through responsibility, through mindset, through attitude, gratitude, all that jazz, all in here. There's a lot of different ones. And then these ones are more medical journals. That's probably not interesting. And some other smart stuff. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Let's get that one, come back to it. Topics and leaders. Let's say you know or want to get to know about, I don't know, who are the biggest people in the autoimmune condition community. Oh, okay. Boydani, Wright, Calabrese, these guys are huge into understanding autoimmune. So then you just take their name and you just type it into Google, or you YouTube a video of theirs, and bam, you're learning about autoimmunity from one of the leading experts in the world. I've tried to put naturopathic physicians on here where I can, but most of these are PhDs, MDs, and others. So say you want, oh my gosh, adverse childhood experiences, I've never even heard of that. Yeah, well, I even put a quote on here, I think. Adverse childhood experiences are the single greatest unaddressed health threat facing our nation today. And so you can learn about what in the world are adverse childhood experiences, and what could potentially happen for those that have suffered adverse childhood experiences. And so you could just go through, okay, I've heard a lot about this carnivore diet lately, just eating meat. So who should I go to? Oh, well, Sean Baker kind of made that popular, and a couple of these other people also helped, but he's the main guy behind it. So maybe you should look up him instead of just some random blogger. So might as well go to the source. So that's what this is. Understand what the leaders are saying and not just the followers. Okay? Helminthic therapy, high carb. Oh, you've heard about high carb diets. You've heard about the ketogenic diet. What in the heck is that? There's some awesome things on YouTube that I can listen to for free. Yep, all right here. Okay, next one, we'll come back to patient prep. Let's do research topics. This is for those who want to dive into different research areas to understand how it relates to maybe their overall health, or just out of interest they might want to check this out. So right now, something that's big in research is autophagy, the idea that as you fast, your body kind of regenerates itself. So it eats the dead parts of its cell that are not that good, like the proteins that are misfolded and not functioning properly. So a very important aspect of long-term health. So autophagy is awesome. Obviously, that goes in line with intermittent fasting, prolonged fasting, oxidative stress, oxidative debt. Okay. Then there's not just the genome that we have, the DNA sequence. There's all the proteins. That's called proteome. The connectome, that's how the human brain is all connected. The microbiome, that's the bugs in the gut and on the skin and elsewhere. Nutrigenomics, the effect of nutrients on the expression of your genes, your DNA, and some others. Okay. So you can nerd out on here. There's some cool hypotheses on here that have some research behind them. Like biophilia hypothesis is the idea that we humans need nature in our lives, and having nature in our lives, like grass and trees in our front yard instead of a cement slab, has effects on the human mind and your health and longevity and your happiness. Okay? So fun stuff there. Moving on. Workshops and conferences doesn't apply too much to your people. This is local workshops to Arizona. They could do some online ones if they really wanted to. They could fly down to locally to Arizona. Probably not important to them. National conferences. This is more for healthcare providers. So if you know healthcare providers, or if you know MDs that want to become more like functional medicine docs, that means they do conventional medicine, normal traditional medicine, but they want to get involved in holistic health. They want the bigger picture. They want to start, addressing diet and lifestyle and sleep and all that stuff, instead of just saying, oh, you have such and such a disease, here's a drug. So this whole resource will be good for them. All of these will be good for them, and especially these conferences, that they go to the right conferences. Here's some international ones, and continuing education doesn't really apply. Moving on, culture and religion. This is just to understand that this world's a lot bigger than sometimes we think in our little bubbles. So for example, there's not just the Old and New Testament, the Bible, in terms of what constitutes scripture. There's a whole bunch of other ones that people hold sacred, right? What about in India? What are their biggest sacred books? Okay, so you got these. You got the Tao Te Ching. You got the I Ching. Some of these are super old, and they're awesome to read. So good little overview there. And then this is based in Arizona, but I'm sure it has application in other parts of the United States and Canada. Just a breakdown of basic beliefs of Catholics, Protestants, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints or Mormons, non-denominational, mainline Protestant, Hinduism, Islam, moral atheism, New Age, more on Christianity. That's more, again, for docs to better understand their patients and where their patients are coming from and their culture and lifestyle. Life coaches. This needs edited. but here are some of the most influential life coaches today in the world. And you could Google or YouTube any one of these and just be blown away at how awesome they are. Tony Robbins talks, phenomenal. He really helped me when I was going through a hard time. I just Googled some of his videos. Amazing. Esther Perel I really like, Understanding Human Sexuality, the difference between male and female sexuality. From kind of a psychological attractiveness perspective. Okay, there's some local ones that doesn't really apply. So all these, great to look up. Businesses and referrals. I don't know if this really has application to your people, so I don't even know if we need to talk about it. But I'm going to be having like some local business workshops, how to become a more successful healthcare practitioner. So moving on, let's go to alternative media. Everyone's heard of PBS, CNN, NBC, CBS. These are all mainstream. So if you want to understand news, then you need to understand what's mainstream and what's not, so you can understand the narrative that we're all being fed. So if you only listen to, for example, these, then you're getting a very leftist, democratic, to some extent, kind of feel and news coverage. So it'd be important to maybe say, oh, maybe I should spend some time on the other side of the spectrum, maybe some Fox News. Oh, they're the only conservative news source? Well, somewhat conservative. So then you have to already get into alternatives like these ones. They're not mainstream. Okay? So that's mainstream news. What are the alternative ones? Who are the biggest names in alternative news? And I have a whole list of them right here. And I've listened to most of these people, and they're all awesome. But they're some of the most popular, and good to understand perspectives, multiple perspectives. Also helps you kind of connect with patients. So it might not apply as much. But fun to explore. You can watch videos of these people on YouTube all day, every day. Let's go to Food Guide real quick. Here's a quick nitty-gritty vegan and plant-based cookbooks, all sorts, ketogenic cookbooks. You can buy some organic heirloom seeds from this guy. Farmers markets, what would apply in Canada? Maybe just food prep delivery services. They're usually like 10 to 15 bucks a plate. You can just have food delivered to you. Don't even have to prepare it. Healthy meals delivered right to your door. That's probably the only one that applies there. Apps, this is also more for physicians, like what apps to have on your phone. Although these first several are great for anybody. Vitamin D, D-Minder, keeps track of your vitamin D exposure. Really cool app, very smart. Sleep does the same in terms of tracking your sleep. You can track your symptoms to see if an intervention that you're doing is working. So you daily put in some of the symptoms you're having. And some meditation ones. Okay, moving on. Books. This is a great one. Best health books. And then some others. I should put these in sections, but they're all just kind of clumped together in order of alphabetical order. So these are health books that are not already found elsewhere on this website, because I do mention some books elsewhere. Like, for example, one of the people that hosts a podcast, I might put their book on there if they've written a book. And those ones are usually pretty good too, so these ones are excluding those, so don't double up. Okay, so these are some great books. Yay, heal yourself. Read some awesome books. Business leadership books, if people want to get into the business realm, this is not just for naturopathic doctors, nor for any kind of healthcare practitioner. This is anybody that wants good business tips, right? There you go. How to Win Friends and Influence People, Linchpin, just some phenomenal books that people all over the world talk about and recommend. Okay? So now let's dive in the next video about those other topics.